Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first of these inspiring conversations on my podcast and on my YouTube channel. I'm Claire Westwood, the Chief Creative Maverick, and I wanted to gather some of the people together that I knew to talk about life evolution. How, if we don't want to fit into the modern kind of structure of life where we sort of follow the steps on the spreadsheet, how we discover who we are and what we love to do. And my guest today is the lovely Reka. Hello, Reka.
Hi.
Lovely to see you again. And we've just reconnected before I started recording. And she's just a beautiful soul with a lovely energy. And we met online when we were doing a program together last year before. Can't even remember now. Year before, maybe. Year before,
Maybe
I think.
even, yeah.
Now we're in 2026. And there were so many synchronicities around what we were posting and what we were sharing that we like leapt into a conversation. We have to talk to each other. So although we're different ages, we're different lives, we're in different parts of the world, we just really connected in various ways with each other, partly around the love of Coldplay and how Coldplay is kind of a synchronistic sign for both of us. So that was quite fun. So Reka, thank you for joining me. And well, do you want to tell people what you told me before, like literally where you are right now?
Yeah, hello and hello everyone. And how exciting is this when you say like, and the first, and I'm like, oops, okay, let's get
No,
this one.
I mean, there's no major responsibility, but you are the first one.
Awesome, I like it. Yeah, so right now I'm like, this is just as real as it can be. We are in Hungary, where I'm from, and I'm sitting in the middle of my childhood room. So hence I have plenty of stuff remembering, and this is the only spot where the lighting was okay. So I'm sitting like under the light in the middle of the room next to our suitcase, which has to be packed tomorrow to head back to Denmark where we live. So yeah, this is where I am. So I directly came up to the staircase to this room after sledging in the fresh snow for 2.5 hours with the kids and the cousins and everyone. And I was just playing cards with my grandpa. So this is what the past 2 weeks has been about, mostly like balancing some of the stuff which I still want to show up for. And at the same time, it's total 100% presence and family time and spending time with the people who are still around and the new ones in the family and kind of merging them in all kinds of ways. So this
Oh,
is
that
kind
sounds,
of like the lovely moment between the chaos.
yeah, and that sounds so good, because I think what I want to talk about in these conversations is like the reality of life, as well as how do we evolve, how do we grow, how do we live our purpose while we're still in the 3D, as it is now, 2026 world. So that fits in beautifully. So for those people who don't know you, do you want to just talk a little bit about a little bit about your life, your childhood, if it's relevant to what you do now, and then kind of your initial career path or intention early on?
Yeah, well, I am a firstborn. That says a lot in general. And then I have a sister who is 3 years younger than me. And then in our childhood, we have been taking part in a lot of creative works. I don't really know what the English equivalent, so you might be helping me with that one. It's kind of like an activity club with a
Yep.
focus to something creative.
Yep.
And it was like every Friday afternoon.
Okay. Yep.
And we both went there, but we had like our like kind of a different path. But generally, we always have been doing either some kind of arts and crafts, and then we had a sport to go to, and then generally the family values has been like going out in nature. So when there was like Easter, then we went for a walk in the forest, or in the wintertime the big deal was that my dad took us to ski, and or we went climbing in the mountains. So that's kind of like the stuff which always mattered a lot to me, like the
Yeah.
creative things and nature.
Yeah.
And then as a first,
Were you in Hungary then?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I was raised and born in this house, so this has been standing here for a long
That
while.
very bedroom.
There's this very bedroom. Yeah, well, actually I was born in another small house in the same property. So they built this house when I was, before my sister was born. So I was
Okay.
about 2 or something. But yeah, technically this is the place where most of my childhood until 23rd year or something has evolved. And I haven't even left the district for the first, I don't know, many years.
Wow.
So because everything was around, like my grandparents lived here, this creative stuff was here in the same area. So there was technically everything around. And then as a firstborn, I was also like the one who followed the rules. So I got the good grades. I did my homework and all of that. And then jumping to career path, like when we were 18 in Hungary, it wasn't really a thing. Like you just obviously know that you are done with the first so many years, then you go to the next so many years, then you go to university for the next so many years. So you had to like kind of at 18 just like, okay, what is the one you go to university with? There is no culture of having a year traveling around discovering what you want to do, just like in Denmark, for example. So here it's just you go. So I was 18 and I was like, okay, I like to draw, I like nature, I like these things. Then I liked math. I was quite okay at math. So I was like, okay, should I be an architect? And then I went to the admission exam or whatever when you have to draw, and literally the building just shut the door on my face. Like it was amazing that moment. I was like, I didn't even need to go through, like I knew like it's not gonna be the place. And it didn't. But then I had to like, there are like different places you can mark, and I was like, okay, I cannot just go with one, so I will have at least 3. So I put like 2 architect schools or something. And then I heard of something which is called landscape architecture, which was like nothing, nobody ever knew what it meant, like in my surrounding. I didn't know it, but I was like, okay, it sounds like a lot of scientific stuff you can learn. So a lot of learning. It's nature science. It's also with nature. It's outdoor. It's technically creating outdoor spaces. So it's an architect for the outdoors. So I was like, okay, I still can draw. I still can vision. I still can create spaces. And it's even with nature and natural materials. Awesome. So that's gonna be it. So I literally,
it's almost like, so 2 of the things you were passionate about, creativity and the outdoors, come together. And I think that's so fascinating that you're like, and then I heard of this thing and I'd never heard of it before. And it's like, you know, when we're making choices when we're younger, I mean, I think it's different. It must be different now because, you know, young people have so much exposure to so many different ways of living. But it's almost like we can't do anything we've never heard of. You know what I mean? It's like, how do you find out what might be like something perfect for you if nobody's ever mentioned it? So yeah, that's brilliant.
Yeah, so true. And like literally it's very describing for me. Like I would just go for it, even though like I know I don't have depth, like in deep knowledge about it, or 5 people recommending it or something. I knew no one with this. And I was like, well, it just sounds like it could be a good choice, so let's just go with it. And then I still had, so technically 2 weeks before the deadline, I just discovered there is a profession like this, and I was like, okay, let's go and do it. Yeah, so that was what I studied.
Yeah.
And then, and the 4th year of that, there was possibility because I want to give you like kind of the milestones when life has interfered in some way.
Sure.
And that was also when the door shut on me. And then the next of such was when I was like, okay, I want to do an exchange year. Where should I go? And then I went to a gymnasium where I learned English and Italian from when I was 10 years old. Like all those many years between 10 and 18. Actually, well, doesn't matter. So I learned Italian. So it seemed an obvious choice to go to Italy. And I knew a lot about the culture, and I have been to Italy several times. And then there was like this, typically you would go for this study abroad program event to hear more about it. And I am not the person who comes in time or early, usually. So it's like at this time, I don't know why, I was there a full hour early. I had to go, I don't know why. And then Denmark was presented before Italy. And I was
Oh.
just like, Denmark, why would you go there? Like, you don't go to, I mean, Italy, I know everything about. I know skiing. In summer, you go to the beach. And I'm like, Denmark, like, why would you go to Scandinavia? And it's not like, I mean, in England, you might have something like to do with Scandinavia or whatever in history and stuff you hear about it. But it's like Denmark wasn't really in the spectrum from Hungary
Yeah.
as such. Like, yeah, you could know something of Vikings, but yeah. So that's how I ended up in Denmark, first as an exchange student, because obviously after that I was like, nope, I'm going to Denmark. And then I went to Denmark, and then I just, after a month, I was supposed to be there half year, but after a month I was like, I'm staying here for a full year. I don't know how yet. And then instead of just studying, I just extended with like an internship right after.
Mm.
So I was there a full year, and then I moved back home, and then I to finish the university here officially. And then yeah, and then I had like a lot of friends while I was away there, who were from Spain. So I technically had a Spanish family there. And then after I was here, they said like the next year I was still keeping in touch with them, and they were like, we still live here. And actually next year we are traveling to China. So you can just come, take my job in the ice cream selling business, and you can just stay in my dorm room, and then you can come visit Denmark while we are in China. So I just bought this one-way ticket, and that was like back 16 years ago now.
Wow.
And so I just ended up in Denmark that way, and then I sold ice cream for a year because it just kept being in this like, okay, then, and I lived very cheaply, and I moved 12 times because there were places I stayed for 1 month or stuff. So that was like kind of university, and then not followed by taking a career
Yeah.
right away, like taking
Yeah.
a job from your mentors or something like that. That was not happening because I started something in another country, then I went to another country, then I just sold ice cream.
Yeah. But it
So
sounds like, there's opportunities, like you went to do one thing and then that didn't happen, and then straight away it's almost like something that really appealed to you kind of showed up. Or
yeah,
you're just like, well, why not do landscape architecture? Well, why not go to Denmark? That sounds great. And why not sell ice creams? Like this, it feels like what's coming through is a sense of adventure. It's like, this is where I was going, but actually I've got diverted, and that feels more fun or more real or more, more aligned with who you are, or just like, yeah, why not?
yeah, it's very much like that kind of excitement of the new adventure, or like the new, and that's also very aligned. That's why I'm like, yeah, let's do the podcast, like let's just do it, like, yeah, let's not wait for longer because it's so exciting right now, so let's see
Exactly.
where it
Yeah, yeah,
takes.
yeah.
So yeah, yeah. And yeah, so, and then the last bit is that that after selling ice cream, I'm the one who is stubborn at the same time. So then I was like, okay, but it's like I don't really imagine myself selling ice cream forever,
Yeah.
especially after spending a whole winter selling ice cream.
Yeah. Yeah, I've done that
There
bit. I
was
can
like
tick it off my
nobody
list.
coming
Yeah.
to buy ice cream. And I was like, okay, if I actually ever want to work in the profession, then I have to have like connections in Denmark. So then I applied to be a landscape architect in Denmark. And usually, once you have a university degree in Europe, then you cannot really apply to take another one just like that, without like with all the support and everything. But there was this little gap, and that's also like I am helped so often. So
Yeah.
the thing is that there was this thing that what they taught there, that line was actually called a different profession in Hungary. So I was like, that part I could not study in this profession.
Yeah.
And so I could argue for why I would retake an education. And then at the same time, they calculated all the classes which I already took in Denmark. So technically, they said like, fine, because you come back to where you have been, we know you, blah, 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 blah. But you are going to be the very last on the list. So if there is not enough people applying, you can take a spot.
Yeah.
And that was probably the only year when not enough people applied. So I was like, okay, I'm in. Yeah, and then
Amazing.
so then I was there, and I already skipped a lot of part because I was like, yeah, I already had some courses, so I was technically just doing all the fun courses,
Yeah.
and I didn't need to have another 2 full year because there were so many things counted. And then I just went, and that's another very telling thing of me. I started with an internship again, and I could have stayed there somehow, but I didn't feel so much like to click with, like, personally
Yeah.
in the place. And they were really great, like profession wise, but it's like I always have this element of the human in it.
Mm.
And then they had kind of another connection with someone, and that was the chemistry was different. So then I stayed with her for a while, but then there wasn't enough to do. Then I got a kid, then I get another one. Long story short, I'm not working officially as a standard landscape architect anymore. And after I had my second child as well, I just decided that, okay, now I have done 10 years of parenting in some way. That's very interesting. I kind of just, you mentioned intuition before. I somehow had this lines in my head that I want to have 2 children, and I think I don't want to have children after 35. Who knows what's going to happen, but at least planner wise, I
Mm.
got my second child. And I'm not like such a planner, but like I got my second child. She was born 3 days before my birthday. No, 4 days before I turned
Okay. Good
35.
planning. Yeah. And it
And
sounds like as well, like along the way, you're tuned into kind of adventure or things that feel exciting, but also when you're doing it, you're pretty good at knowing this isn't where I want to stay for much longer, or
uh,
okay, this has been a great experience, so what's next? Whereas people, I know it's really easy to kind of get stuck for a while doing something because of the security or the safety or because people. And it sounds like, you've had this kind of, yeah, the theme of feeling like, okay, I'm done here, what's next, sort of thing, and really trusting that.
yeah, yes, and it's you are so on spot with this, because one of the things I have started to discover, and it's also partly where we met together, was like, after I was like, okay, all the pandemic and all the childhood raising and all of that kind of stuff, I was like, okay, if I want a whole different setup, because this structure is not fitting me anymore, the
Yeah.
normal traditional structure, and maybe it never really did,
Yeah.
then what will be the next thing, or where should I step in? And I was still flowing with a lot of informations, but there is like this kind of overlap where we both had this human design journey or
Yeah.
like interaction to it.
Yeah.
And when you mentioned this, like me kind of feeling into when something is still in flow and when there is this change, actually that's one of my channels, is this rhythm.
Yeah.
So I do have like kind of this inner sense of freedom of where I stay somewhere, and everybody, and I can be also very, um I wouldn't call it stubborn, but I can also be very much like, okay, I'm not ready to go yet, even though everybody has already said change now or start now or do this or that. I
Yeah.
can also be like, it's not because I'm stuck, but there is still something here I
Yeah.
haven't uncovered yet to make the next
Yeah.
move.
So
And
it's
then
almost
at the
like
same time, I can,
you're going to go, but you're waiting for like the
for the
time,
right moment.
the
Yeah,
time kind of
exactly.
thing.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
what's your human design profile? Can you remember?
Yeah, it's 3-5.
Wait, and what's your main,
Oh,
like,
I'm a generator. I'm
a
I'm
generator?
a sacral
Okay.
generator,
Okay. So
a
yeah,
three
so for,
five.
for people that don't know, human design is a way of understanding ourselves, a kind of personality thing based on when and where you were born. And I'm a manifesting generator. So I love lots of variety and doing lots of stuff. But I think what human design has taught me, and I think we talked about this when we had our original conversations, is really like, I have so many ideas and I have a lot of energy and I can leap into things before my system is really ready. And what I've learned as I've got older and I've learned more about myself is like, having the ideas is great. Like we talked about doing a podcast like ages and ages ago. And I set up the podcast page and I did like 3. And literally on Monday, which was the 5th of January, 2026, first day back at school for a lot of people, back at work after Christmas, I was doing my stretches in the bedroom and I was just like, today's the day, like reach out to people, get it going. And I was just like, do I finish my stretches first? Do you know what I mean? Like literally in the middle of this thing. And it was like, bam, today is the day. And I was like, okay, that's my first thing I'm going to do once I'm, showered and dressed and all that kind of stuff. And it was amazing just to go, oh, and all the reactions have been amazing. And, the day after I had my first conversation with somebody, 2 days after that, we're recording. And so, I've learned to go, instead of me fighting against it and going, at some point I'll do the podcast, or I should be doing something, or I'm not really feeling it. It's like, oh my God, it's now. And that kind of energy sort of like carries me through the first bit. And now I've got momentum because I've got people reaching back and, and appointments in the thing. And that's been so interesting to me to kind of trust that and go, oh, am I procrastinating? Should I have done it by now? Like all this stuff. And it's like, Claire, your body will tell you when it's time, which is really interesting, which I've only really been tuned into. I've always had that kind of intuitive nudges, but I think in the last couple of years, I've been more trusting of letting things flow when it feels like nothing much is happening. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's extremely interesting. We always have these synchronicities, and I was just like, I couldn't even like smile more when you mentioned this 5th of January, because it's so funny. Like human design as a system is one thing. And then there is Jinkies as another thing, kind of within and merged and in another constellation with this system.
Yeah.
And so I literally know for a fact, or like from my life also, like 5th of January, there was a shift in the transits. The sun transits different gates, whatever, like you can talk more about it if you want, but like we were literally entering to this kind of energy all together.
Well, there we go.
Which can both be like this more, and it can both be super misaligned, just like this, to have as much as others do, comparison culture, pressure thing.
Yeah.
But when it's aligned, when it's coming from your body, then actually we are kind of sitting on this wave, which has been just rolling under. And it's so funny. The reason why, like, sometimes I can take some time replying to people, and I was actually in the middle of like still being with my family and all of that. I was just sitting right behind the computer doing kind of the sort of same stuff as you do. And so when you wrote, I was like, yep, we are just rolling with this, because I had the same urge inside, like, okay, it's not because we have to do this, but it's like my fingers are also on the thing, on the keyboard.
Yeah, totally. And I think for me, I mean, I didn't know about that bit, but we had the full moon the weekend before, and that was like, I was just like all over the place with the full moon, and almost and really my feeling over the full moon weekend, I did a full moon ritual online, because I'm now doing like full moon and new moon rituals online with journaling and visualizations and stuff. But I was just like, oh, it's Monday, like back to my fitness class, back to improv, which are things I love. But literally over the weekend, I was like, oh, do I want to go back into my routines? But when I hit the Monday morning, it was like a totally different version of me got up out of bed. And I was just like, well, great.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And it's also like, I think it's super interesting that we have such a hard time trusting that when you actually, because full moon is about like letting go, right?
Yeah.
Generally, sometimes it's also a new moon can also have this element and stuff, but it's like generally it's like really asking you to trust instead of rushing towards like what all the plans and all the future and everything. Okay, just stay for a second, release what you create space, and it's like something always fills up that space, what you have created. And this is what I love to do. Like it's kind of where I am at, just to jump to the other end of the evolution. Like this is where I'm standing right now, or sitting, when I'm just like pulling all these different ways of how you can create space for the flow to re-enter, for the new stuff, for for the desires and everything to actually have somewhere to flow into. And I find the same, like with the moon rituals. It's very, very beautiful how after the energy can actually really switch. And it's the same with the emotions and the feelings, when you actually trust that you will feel when you have to take that step. And there is also time to honor in staying and feeling into them, or releasing, or like dedicate the time also what it takes for the not productive parts. Then actually you get like kind of like you get this little support from the universe also after, because then you can speed up things super fast afterwards. So at the end, within the matter of 3 days, you can have the same process, but it's not always like you do this one quarter one day, the next quarter the next day, and like that. It can just happen like, okay, I didn't do anything visible 2 days, and then the third day is just like, wow, there it is.
Yeah. And I think, like, you know, with a lot of people, but they've been talking about the numerology of last year, and then, you know, the Chinese astrology, and whichever kind of way of looking at the world we want to buy into. But, you know, the 9-year is one of completion. And I just feel like the last couple of years I've been completing so many cycles. And then, you know, I am actually, you know, a horse sign. So when we get into February, like, this is my year coming up. And I had an astrology reading, quite an in-depth one, about a year and a bit ago, and I've never really had my astrology read. And she was saying, oh yeah, February 2026, that's like when things really kick off. And this was October 2024, and I was like, what?
Like, long?
What? And so, you know, last year I was very much, you know, still the very dynamic bit of me, like, I'm going to get, you know, things started in the business and go out into, there's lots more creative conscious networking groups here where I live in Bristol, and going out to meet people and getting things started. But it was very much stop and start, just like, oh, okay. And then when I did the end of year review with my own mentor, she was really, it was really good to look back at it. And one of the questions she asked was, what has 2025 been about? So what I thought it was going to be about, which is like the business going, dynamic, you know, money, clients, and I was like, what, looking back at it, what has it been about? And it was really interesting to go, oh yeah, a lot of it's been about releasing, but it's about like setting down really deep roots and really deep foundations, and getting to know who I am on a totally different level, so that now I'm like, oh, I'm now ready. Like last year I thought I was ready and I wanted to get more done. And so it's really interesting. And often for me as well, with the dark time of the year, I don't really wake up till February, you know, when Imbolc comes and the snowdrops start, and you can really sense the days getting longer. So I was really shocked, you know, on Monday morning, it was like, today, Claire. And I'm like, oh, I don't wake up till February though. Do you know what I mean? So yeah. But allowing myself to follow that and going, okay, I know this sign and I know this energy, and with total non-attachment to whether people say yes, I'm going to send messages to people I really want to have conversations with. And that's been a really, really lovely thing.
Yeah, and it's so interesting, isn't it? Because I think most people had probably the opposite experience of like really wanting to start things first day you are back at work, or like 1st of January, and all that kind of pressure. Because I mean, also what you mentioned, this shift from the snake year to the wooden horse year. Yeah, but that's also in some month. It's like, yeah, we just turned the clock, or like the numbers are different already. But there is this beautiful time. I love this kind of, and it's like, I call it sensitive transition. It's always like this transition between when it's like, it's not a void, it's something which is like the lines are a bit blurred, like when something starts and when something ends. And I think it's such an interesting and exciting time, because it can be so individually different also. Because for you, it can be that you already kickstarted this thing. For someone, it can be like actually like pulling everything back so that the horses are ready like in 2 months. But maybe they also, if their body gives the sign, then they will plant seeds. Maybe they start the conversations, but they don't record yet. Maybe it's like setting up the web page. So once in 2 months, it takes a while with different things. And I think it's like, I really am super excited for this astrological year coming up, or for the China. For me, it's also like, I tend to have things starting in March. Like I have this one thing is this inner rhythm, what we talked about, and the other thing is this cyclus during the year. Like
Yeah.
I follow very much nature, but there are some surprising points when I kick off from it somehow. I don't know why, but for me, March and November seems to be very transformational in some
Mm.
weird way.
Yeah.
I haven't fully found out why, but now since I'm looking at it the same way as you do, like looking back, what was the last time and what happened like last November and
Yeah.
what has happened this November, I'm like, okay, there is something with this November. So it's like, yeah, I think it's gonna be quite interesting in the next couple of months to see, because I think it's like all of this, like many people are on this path, many people are still a bit more focusing on the closures, and it's, yeah, it's just this exciting like what happens under the surface, you know, under the snow outside. Like a lot of things are bubbling up and we don't see them all yet.
Yeah, totally. And I love the, you know, the idea of kind of seasonal living and really making the most of the dark times instead of sort of dreading it. But I think there's also this, you know, what are we listening to? You know, are we listening to nature? Are we listening to society that says you should be doing this at this time in your life, or this, you know, it's January the 1st, you should be doing this, or and I think the more we do this work of kind of exploring who we are and what works for us, it's almost like we can really honor okay, that's happening in the world, that's what society's doing, or a lot of people are doing right now, and actually my body's saying the opposite, or I want to do the opposite. Or, you know, even as we went into winter, I could feel like the next version of myself almost birthing through, and I was like, normally I'm going inwards, but I feel like I've done so much inwards, I was almost like going the opposite of what I
Mm.
normally would feel,
Uh,
because I'd done it's almost like I did the inward bit over the summer. And then so therefore it's the sort of outward piece. And it's sort of really feeling into that and allowing myself to go, okay, well, this is what I'm feeling right now. And allowing it to be there. So yeah.
Yeah, it isn't it interesting? It's almost like this ever never ending matrix of things, because there is like you as an individual, but then there are all the, like, no matter which scale you choose, there is so much happening. And
Yeah.
then it's like the next 3 months it's gonna be this way, then the next year, that time it's already total different constellations, total different things. And I think the beauty of being on a personal evolutionary journey is really to find kind of your own anchors, to your own little guidelines to how do you discern, or how do you like decide where to go, or what is that sign which is given only to you, so you can tell like, okay, this time how which one I trust more in some way,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so, you know, to follow on from that, like, so what's been emerging in you? So since you went, right, I've done this, I mean, presumably you were homeschooling your kids over lockdown as well.
No, actually, that was a lot of different stuff we tried. I actually officially haven't homeschooled my kids,
Okay.
but we just chose different. I don't even want to call them institutions, but like
Yeah.
different forms of living, which
Yeah.
required a little more of my time. And I actually, if I want to be fully honest, I have been really long not allowing myself, like not honoring that, because I seem to be very outgoing and
Yeah.
very like energetic with people and stuff, and it's been super long I didn't honor alone time, which I also need, because I do create alone actually. Like I
Yeah.
interact, I get a lot of impulses, I give a lot of nudges also, and I love that exchange. I love it a lot. But when the last outcome, I always like the final touch, I need silence and I need alone time to do that.
Yeah.
And while my kids were little, I felt like I had this inner clock. Like there is a lot of systems for that also. Some says the first 7 years. And then I did when my firstborn was 6, I think. Yeah. When she was 6, then I did something which is called neurotransformation therapy, which kind of put me on this self-development line, or it was like a merge, like a parallel line, I would rather say. But like that was a lot about releasing emotions, releasing the whole pressure of like what I thought motherhood has to be, like this
Yeah.
full on self-sacrifice.
So you experienced it through a therapist, or you trained in it?
It was both.
Both. Okay.
So that was also one of this thing that I somehow seem to be like finding these unique things, which are very rarely the
No one's ever
traditional way
heard
of
of.
going. So this was
If there's
actually
something
a
really
thing.
unusual in a pile of things, you're going to find it.
Yes, so that was a both. That was something which was like, okay, you can be trained in it, and the first step is you take the journey yourself.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that
Always.
was like that way.
Yeah.
But the reason why I stepped in it was because I wanted to reconnect to the fun self. So I was technically always picking up the kids early, always spending every awakened time with them in their development, in being together, closing out the world, really focusing and all of that. But I got to a point when I have been drained out
Yeah.
in that. Like I have given all what I had in reserved,
Yeah.
and then I have not had a flow in the system. I didn't allow that. And I was like, okay, I start to notice the bodily, like the signs. Some get sick. For me, I was just like, that spark started to disappear. And I was like, okay, what's the point of spending this much time together when they actually don't get to know the real me? Like I
Yeah.
want them to remember the person who I was before them in some way, which is a
Yeah.
weird mix. But I was just like, okay, I used to be so spontaneous or so fun, and all that I did with them. So they got like, when the snow fall, then it's like, oh, we are just gonna be late for school because we take the sledge today, because then it's all gonna be cleared. So I poured all the creativity, all the stuff which I used to be in them, but I did not do anything for me. I did not do
Yeah.
anything out of that system. And when I realized that I want to give them a version of me which I barely remember, so I have to find her. Then I
Yeah.
went to this, I could say therapy, but it was more like, okay, I know this is going to be something I also can help others with at some point.
Yeah.
And that was how they kind of sold me into that, because there is no better way for a third line to say, try it on you first. And
Yeah.
and I'm also like, yeah, just a little bit of human design nerdery, but bear with us. I have also in the incarnation cross, I have right cross. So the thing is that I have to go first, and then I
Yeah.
can contribute to others. There are many people who doesn't need to go on their own, and they can still add a lot to others' lives. But for me, it's a lot about self, like the experience which I have done first, or I have felt first. So for me, that was like this way. It was very nice. Sorry, we went a little curveball from that, like homeschooling and all of that.
But
But
this is
yeah,
life though, right?
yeah,
It flows and
exactly.
ebbs, and
So we just,
yeah, it's all good.
yeah. So where I am now, you were asking
Yeah.
before, and it's like after like both the human design journey, both this therapy and like the online self-development world and all of that. Then last year, I took a whole year of human design, being in a container, for business, for using human design, because I was like, okay, I'm done. Like now I reconnected to myself. That took about actually like 1.5 years or something, when
Yeah.
I was really like, okay, pulling the plugs, like and then I regained like this alone time while they were at school, because again, transition, it's like
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I don't want to drop that time with them, but then
Yeah.
there is no other time than the work hours to be with me. So I have to make it like about also like the career and the everything like happening in that time, right?
Yeah.
So I spend a lot of time like giving back to myself and kind of rediscovering myself with human design and other things. And then yeah, so I spent pretty much the last year getting to know, like through experiences, whether how do I get back to myself, and how do I shed, like, it's not because I planned to shed it in the snake year, and it didn't only happen in that year, but there was like a lot of things that I imagined, as you said, like when you wrote back like what 2025 is going to be, I had kind of similar experience. I was like, now I'm not applying any more jobs anymore on the side. This is just gonna be it, yeah. And then we somehow survived, but it's like not that I have gone so much ahead visibly. But then in the summer, I started up something for my own fun also, but for contribution, which was about simply every Monday, I sit down for 2 hours and I paint whatever comes up super intuitively. It's a 2 hour session for yourself. So I was like, something happened health-wise in my family. So we had to come here for the whole summer. And I was like, okay, it's gonna be again so much required from me that I actually need to find something, because now I know better, right? So I was like, I know I can give them the most if I'm gonna have something flowing into me. Like I will need to have these 2 hours for myself, for my creativity, for my self-connection. And then I just somehow started this thing when every Monday I am sitting down for 2 hours, and then it's possible to join me live. And then I'm talking about the gene keys, like the collective energies, like what do I sense, kind of what is where my personal intuition and life experience merges through the lens of what the sun transits, so what might others also experience in those days. And then I talk a little bit of that and whatever else comes, because I have done a lot of somatic different things and journeying, and then I call in also, I use the medicine wheel combined with the Jungian archetypes. So technically this practice is going like the way I see evolution is that we return to some points, like we go in this cyclus.
It's a spiral.
So it's a spiral. And so this concept is also kind of, it's every week, but we take like one archetype of the 4 each week, and then we just restart, but we are on a different level of the journey next time we go. So this is what I do at the moment right now, that I still keep going with this. And now I just had on Monday, I had the 26th week of that. And that is for someone, it might be like, that's what I do every Monday. For me, that's a huge thing, because it's only, just to recap what you were saying about your body, it's only happening to things which are aligned in my body, because I'm not the person who is, I'm very much the ebb and flow. I'm like, but it's not decided from my head, kind of. It's something which I'm so looking forward to, because I know it gives so much to my body to have this connection and to show up. And sometimes people join me and then they say like it really gave something for them to connect to them that day, and it was in their divine timing, and then I'm getting so happy. And then there are weeks when they are not coming, and then it's a different energetic game. But I'm just like, so it's huge. So this is what I'm doing like now every Monday, and it's just super fun. I can show you something. So because I don't know if it might give something to you, but like this was this starting kind of energy thingy, and I never plan what they become. So this week we were in the Jaguar of the 4. So it's using kind of the shamanic Andean from Peru archetypes, and there are others who use the same. But this was like the second one, the Jaguar, which I call like the gentle warrior energy. And then I just tune into that, call in that, and then I paint whatever comes from my body. So it's totally an intuitive process. So that's kind of where I am on the outcome part right now. That's like the latest.
So there's a couple of things. So for people who are just listening to this on the audio, can you just hold that up again, and we'll try and describe the what medium are you using there? Is that charcoal or paint or?
It is, yeah. Well, the thing is, this one is I'm showing my painting, and it is on canvas, and it's painted with gouache, which is a paint which can create layers. So
Yeah,
you can actually almost like, it's not like, I love that analogy. It's almost like life. So you can put different layers to different experiences, and you can also scrap it back a little bit and delete some parts, but it's not being fully deleted. And then you can put new stuff on it. So it's kind of like this, there is an imprint of anything you make on the paper, but they interact with each other. So
yeah,
that makes it really, really fun. And also it makes it possible to, like, sometimes I can even have the paint flowing by itself, just applying more. It can also work like watercolor or
yeah.
aquarelle if you
You
put
can
a
make
lot
it
of.
quite runny, so it moves on.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. So you can
yeah,
use different techniques with it, which I
yeah,
love, because then I also can be very intuitive about that. And I cannot tell what is on the picture, because that's the point a little bit, that it's like whatever you see in it, that's the message for you.
yeah.
So I
Yeah.
treat them
So
as
there's
kind of.
so to try and describe this kind of dramatic black sort of swirl shapes in the center, and then it's got kind of pale orangey yellows around it, and something that looks a bit like water at the bottom. But yeah, it's an abstract, so I can't say it's a picture of a house that's got this, that, and the other. But just to give people an
Yeah.
idea, yeah, it's a canvas with black and yellow, and it looks very free flow. And I think that's the thing about intuitive art is, you know, it comes through as it comes through, and sometimes we can see things in it when we go back and look at it, like it's almost like an oracle card, and other times we go, I'm not really sure what it meant, but the actual process was just great.
Absolutely. I love both. Exactly. And I think it's also like, it's again a lot about trust, because
Yeah,
while you are going with it, you actually relieve all of what you do in every of your processes, all the patterns. Like, there's a point when you think now it's perfect and I don't dare to do anything with it, and
yeah,
then you are like, okay, how can I go over that point? So you can play. This is like pure playtime. You can
yeah,
play several ways, and I always give also like a creative call. So it's like, if you don't know how to start, then I give you a little thing, which is an invitation. You can take it or you can fully live it. And this one, as you were saying, like, it has kind of a black framework. It's because my call was like, I just saw this, like, okay, something about this energy now tells me about like a black framework. And
mm,
like, what are the spark in this black, like draw something with black, and let's discover, unfold, what are the parts which we don't see at first sight, but maybe there is something in there. So that was it. And yeah, and I think it's really like, I think it's both an imprint or like a visualization of something what has happened to you, or what is your inner landscape playing out, and
yeah,
at the same time it's an anchor or a guide in the next little period. Because as you were mentioning, it's very often like, you look at it. I like to place it in my room somewhere where I can see it after I
yeah,
created the current one. And then it can be that 3 days later you look at it and suddenly you see something in it, or like a message comes through somehow. And sometimes it is like, I finish and I think it's so beautiful, and then I will just like it for the beauty of it. And
yeah.
then there is another time when I'm like, wow, it's good I said, like, it doesn't have to be beautiful, because right now I'm really living those
Yeah.
words.
I
And
mean, it
then
was
I look
powerful,
at
but I
it.
don't really like it as an outcome. Like, and I was
Exactly.
talking to somebody yesterday about this, about, you know, the creative process. And if we get something beautiful at the end of it, that's almost like a bonus, but it's actually the process we go
Yeah,
through. So we're coming towards the end of our conversation. Like, we could be here for 3 hours, but we won't.
totally.
So there's a couple of things I wanted to pick up on just before we finish. And that was like, when life's really busy and we've got a lot of demands on ourselves, that's when it's easy to go, I don't have the time to do these things for myself. But that's actually the time when we need to almost like double down on it.
Yeah.
So, you know, honoring the need that we have, you know, if you want to be a coach or a healer or a, you know, podcaster or a parent or, you know, and a partner, like, to do that well, um and that's not an external judgment, but you know, it's like we have to be refueled, we have to be doing things we love, we have to be connected to ourselves in order to do that.
Yes, because the point is that you want to be, you are gonna do or be or have whatever best is when you really are who you are,
Yeah,
because there is a reason why we are all different and we
yeah,
have all a different essence, and that essence is like it's existing because that's the whole point. Like you are here and that's it. That's why you are worthy of it all, because that's just by existence. So once you get closer to that thing, then actually like everything amplifies. Only good can come out of it in some way, because then it's like then that's your best energy to contribute to whatever of the role you choose, as you were
yeah.
mentioning.
Beautiful. And I think there's another thing. Yeah. So for me, like going back to improv last year, so on my Monday lunchtimes, I pretty much every week go to an improv class. And that, I've been doing it on and off for years. And that's like such a brilliant part of my week. It's like so physically activating and it's social and it's all this. And that's not to say that everybody should be doing, it's very prescriptive. You should be doing improv because it will make your life better if you do it. But it's almost like that's right for me, but it's not necessarily right for everybody. So it's kind of picking something that really works. And I think the fact that you've been doing it for, half a year, and you're almost like, oh, I really look forward to this time because I know what it's going to give me, and I know, yeah, it's really precious, really precious.
Yeah, totally. And yeah, that's also like kind of the interesting part, that I keep the framework, like I give myself like a time frame of Monday at like between 1 p.m. and 3 p.m. in the
Yeah,
third central time. So it's between noon and 2 in your time. But it is because I needed something which I don't have to redefine all the time, because I'm
yeah,
so flowy with the
yeah,
stuff. So it's like, it's also to balance the masculine and the feminine, like, okay, there is a framework and then I
yeah,
can flow into it.
totally.
So
Yeah,
there is like, and I try to also like, that's what I say every time somebody comes on. It doesn't have to be, that's why I was a little bit in trouble when you were asking what's the media, like what is it, canvas or not, because I'm actually saying like, okay, take a piece of paper, take your own hands, whatever you feel called to today.
yeah,
Maybe if you
yeah,
want to journal, the point is we are here in this energy. This is your time. If you want to paint, paint. If you don't
yeah,
want to paint, then I paint and you scribble or whatever. So,
yeah,
or it's kind of like the same what you were saying. It doesn't have, it's not improv for everyone. It's not painting for everyone, but
yeah.
the time which you dedicate for yourself, that matters a lot, I think.
Yeah. And and following that in the moment, like, okay, I'm here between these hours. What do I feel called to do right now? Or what do I want to play with? And and I think a lot of the world, the personal development world, spiritual development world, business world is very much going like this. The conscious areas is like about guiding people. So yeah, you've got the structure, it's happening between this time and this time, and we're going to be doing something creative, and then really really allowing people to follow their own flow and follow their own
Yeah.
guidance. And I think that's the most important thing we've got, is being able to tune into what we need or want or desire or would love to do right in that moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like really, really different how people, like I have also done this in person with two other persons, and then I did also one-to-one with a person, and the energy is always different. The
Yeah,
outcome is also different,
yeah,
because when we did it like in a small group, then it was more like my role was more holding space and harmonizing their energies, while they were in by themselves, but at the same time on the course it was a little bit of a longer event, so it was also a time they spent together. So that was
yes,
both this element of being with themselves but also connecting to another. So it was both like a moment they can remember as spent together, an important moment, but then they also had their own outcomes and all of that. And one-to-one was again a different thing, because then it was more like I just gave up on my process fully, and that was like, okay, this is actually dedicated time to tune into your energy. So then
yeah,
then the paintings were talking. So then I painted her what I felt she needs, and then she painted what she felt she needs, and then the two paintings, that was what this person was saying afterwards, that it was so interesting. She felt like the two paintings are talking together in a different way, and that was also beautiful. So this thing is still a living organism. I don't know where it
Yeah,
goes, but it's like
sounds
there is
amazing.
something fixed about it, and there are things which are like, okay, let's try it out and let's see where it takes us and where it gives most to others, because that's also a huge part of how like the whole flow of energy goes, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And yeah, there's definitely this, theme throughout, I think, my life, your life, everybody who just goes, okay, we can't, we'd love to, our brain would love to know all the outcomes, and it would love to know what's coming up, and it would love to know that I'm doing the right thing, and it would love to know this is absolutely right. And it's only when we're on the journey that we can go, I thought I'd like this a bit more than I do, and I don't really like it that much. So what else is there? And allowing ourselves to just try stuff. I used to, when I was coaching a few years ago, it used to be, like try things on, like you try clothes on. You just go,
Yeah,
try this
yeah,
thing on, try this
absolutely.
hobby on, try this activity on, and see how it feels, because we try, we really want to make decisions with our brain before we've risked anything, but that's really not how adventure happens. We have to sort of step into the adventure and see what comes through. So yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah,
Okay,
and
so we're kind of at the end. So is there anything else you want to share with people?
I just would like to join in just like for one sentence how funny, because it kind of ties beautifully this whole thing in when you were saying like we thought I like this and then there was this spot, and also like as I go with this and we were talking about this spiral, because the more I go into with this painting thing, now suddenly my background of landscape architecture comes more back also, because people start to say like, oh, but you create space. Like I feel like there has happened like some really, or like when I painted this and this, something I could let go, or there was like more spaciousness, or I could breathe again and stuff. And I'm like, oh, it's so funny because I used to create space in a physical way. Now I create space in another way. So kind of like that path was just part of the story. And then I said like, no, let's do something else. And then kind of like I'm still around the same topic, just like looking at from different ways. So it's
Yeah,
like you
because I
never
think
know.
in what you wrote me, you were like, I'm more like an inner landscape person now, and I'm like, oh yeah, so it's really interesting,
Yeah, and then
really
they actually
interesting.
they don't want to let each other go. That's the interesting stuff. Like it's really about the dance between the inner and the outer. And I think that's just like that is what is unfolding now. And I don't know how it will represent itself as a like in the real time, whether like yeah, I don't have like, because you were saying like, okay, obviously usually what comes if to you, dear listeners, like in podcasts like this, usually it comes the end when you say like you can reach out to me here and there and stuff. And it's like, yeah, I have a Substack where I actually send out replays of these rituals so that you can find. But otherwise, like I also have an email, but it's like I have no web page still, and
Well, that's
I'm
fine.
not
I mean,
like,
if
so it's so
Substack is
funny, like
if Substack is where people could find you, or Facebook or
at the
Instagram or
moment.
whatever, then that's all beautiful. Oh yeah.
So I'm just like saying like, okay, well, that's why like when you ask me like, okay, you were writing about this inner landscape stuff. Yeah, because at the moment I'm literally there in this point between the two, and it seems like they are gonna meet again, but let's
That's
see where it goes.
beautiful.
So
When we get some links, I'll put them in the notes
perfect.
on the podcast and on YouTube, and then people who want to contact Reka can do that. But this has been
Absolutely.
such a lovely conversation. It's going dark here in the UK, and I've got my ring lamp on, so I look very pink. I've got pink top and very pink face. And
It's lovely with
anyway, it's
colors.
all good. I just keep looking at myself going, I need to try and alter the lighting, but that's been great. So thank you for being my first recorded one.
Thank
It's
you.
always a joy to talk to you, and everybody who's watching and listening, then thank you for joining us, and I will speak to you very soon. Bye.
Yes, thank you very much. Bye, everyone.